We're going to put a bow on the 2025 season, but eventually we're going to talk about this Charles Bediako thing too.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. I want to thank you every day for being every day because you help make Locked On the number one sports podcast network there is. That's the truth. And it's all because of you. Anywho, so we got to get into Charles Bediako. We'll probably do that in the third segment. It is a wild and woolly thing that's going on with that. But I think it would be best to just put a bow on the 2025 year, not necessarily give out grades, but just a overall aspect of where the program is at this moment. They finished number 9 in the country. I think they're only the second team in history to finish in the top 10 with 4 losses. They're the only team in top 10 history, I think, that finished with 4 losses and lost its last game. Whereas a lot of times you might have 3 losses and then whatever. Or you might have, I don't know. Y'all know what I mean. But, I did a show last night with an Auburn friend of mine, and then I also have talked to a couple other folks that are just sort of out and about in the media, and they're like, I don't really know what to think of this program right now. And I think that's very fair because Alabama is now officially 20-8 over its last 2 years, over its first 2 years with Kalen DeBoer. 8 losses is a lot of losses for Alabama in 2 years. However, part of me says I better start getting used to this. This is going to be closer to the new norm. I look at next year's schedule and think, yeah, I could see 4 losses in there too, assuming we make a playoff or something. And maybe I shouldn't be that way about it. Maybe I shouldn't be that negative about it. But I think that anybody saying that Kalen DeBoer goes in this season with a hot seat is maybe not seeing the big picture. At the same time, I think they're also correct.
Yeah, I think the coach at Alabama is always on the hot seat.
Yeah.
That might sound like a cop-out answer, but it's just true. Yeah, he's on the hot seat. Can you imagine what would happen if, let's say, Alabama finished 6-6 this fall? It's kind of hard to imagine DeBoer continuing. Where I think there will be a complete overreaction to DeBoer is if he finishes 9-3 or 10-2 and makes the playoff, and some Alabama fans still want to run him off. Now that's where the overreaction is. There. But no, I would agree with anyone that I don't know that DeBoer is in a spot where he could withstand what would truly be a disastrous season at Alabama. But, a couple things. I think, DeBoer's 20 wins in 2 years makes Alabama a top 10 program. I think Alabama is top 10 among Power 4 teams in wins in the last 2 years. I think that's what Alabama is. If anyone asks me, like, what's the status of Alabama? I'd say, well, a top 10 program right now. They finished number 9. They were just in this playoff. They missed the playoff last year by 1 spot, just 1 spot out. They were the last team out. And 20 wins in 2 years puts them in the top 10 among wins in Power 4 schools. Now, in terms of the 2025 season, this is, there's the beginning and the end. And that's a big story because game 1 was pretty disastrous. You lost to a 5-7 football team and the game wasn't close. And how could you not play hard or play great in game 1 out of the gate? And then game 15 was pretty bad. I know it was to the national champions. I know Indiana's the best team in college football this year. They deserve all those flowers. They're awesome. They really are. But Alabama shouldn't be trashed by anyone under any circumstance. So game 1 and game 15 were just kind of miserably bad, but it should not eradicate the long stretch in between games 2 and games 14. That's 13 football games. That's a regular season plus a postseason. And in those 13 football games, Alabama was 11-2 only losing to playoff teams while also defeating 2 playoff teams and playing a top 5 schedule. 11-2 against a top 5 schedule. How in the world are we diminishing that accomplishment? Because that's great. That's not good. That's great.
Yeah. And again, I get where everybody's coming from that's angry. I mean, most of my friends who are ardent Alabama fans yet don't follow it as probably as closely as I do or you do, they are pretty upset because, and I get it, because we've been so used to the awesomeness that it's tough to get used to it. And now that some other folks are, sticking their fingers in our faces and going, ha, we told you this was coming. Yeah, but it's really not as bad as they want to make it out to be. That said, people who were just saying, hey, we're whistling past a graveyard, there's no problem at all. There's problems too. But again, broad picture here, you've got to look at it like for most of my life, if you had said, you know what, Alabama goes and they play for the SEC title, they beat their 2 biggest rivals in Tennessee and Auburn. They also beat Oklahoma on the road. They make the playoffs. They win a big game against Missouri on the road at the time, and they beat LSU. I mean, I guess you could say they're 3 biggest rivals. That's a pretty good year. I mean, it's not the best year Alabama's ever had by a long stretch, but it's a nice year. And yeah, I want to get better. No, I don't. I don't feel like 4 losses is something we should accept. I do feel like we better start getting used to having more like 2 losses. Now, when the individual game itself comes up and you lose, you're going to be upset, certainly no matter who it is, even if it's the Chicago Bears. But again, stepping back from it, you need to look at it and go, okay, going forward, if we're going to, especially if we end up going to 16 teams or God forbid 24, a lot of things are going to change. And I think if Alabama continuously goes 10-2, makes the playoff, I'm not going to complain about that. I'm just not. I mean,
10-2 with a 9-game SEC schedule
is ridiculous.
A remarkable season. It's remarkable. It's the old 11-1 or 12-0, frankly.
Especially if Ohio State and Notre Dame and the like stay on the schedule.
Yeah.
Which I'm 100% advocating that they come off, not because I don't want to see it, not because I'm scared, because again, I look at Indiana and say, well, and they had a magical year. You and I, right? There were some people saying we were putting down their season. Their season was unbelievable. I can't give them enough compliments.
But I do. Seasons in college football history.
There's no doubt about it. It's probably the greatest turnaround story in college football history.
Yes. I'm sure that's true, but I think Indiana's one of the great teams. I mean, they're the only team to go 16-0. I don't know that we're going to see
outside of Yale in the 1800s.
Yeah, I mean, but what Indiana did, especially in the playoff, just remarkable.
Well, at the same time, I think it's fair to say, okay, look, I agree that what they did was awesome, but now they didn't play anybody in the non-conference by design. It wasn't like they played somebody and that team happened to be bad. And I know Alabama played a Florida State team that was bad and they beat the brakes off of us. I understand. But my point is, why even risk it? Why not just play 3 Kennesaw States? No offense to Kennesaw State, but you know what you are. So I think that I'm leaning more towards let's do that. Let's get the wins. I'm trying to say it without sounding like I'm trashing Indiana because number one, they beat our butts and made us like it. They beat us Alabama style.
Breaking news, by the way.
What?
We'll get to it in segment 3, but Bediaco has been granted eligibility by the Tuscaloosa County judge. So,
oh God, Jimmy. Oh God, hold me. Hold me, Jimmy. Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We have put a bow on this season. I'm bumping up Bediaco to segment 2 because I got to get to this. We got to talk about FanDuel because, what's going to be fun now, if you're playing FanDuel and there's some Charles Bediaco props in there, you might want to get in on them. College football, basketball is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single day. College basketball is all the time because right now you can get these profit boosts through FanDuel, and they're so much fun. And FanDuel just makes every game even better. It makes you want to follow along even more and keep up with these props. And you can take the team that is a Cinderella, or you can take the favorite that's getting hot, whatever. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all season long when it comes to college basketball. That's FanDuel.com. You want to go there. You want to check it out. You want to see what's up there. Just give it a whirl. See what's up. It's FanDuel. I mean, you know it. It's a big deal. Look, I've told you, my son who's at Arizona State, he's graduating in about a month, by the way, or 2 months. He goes to the Phoenix Suns game. They got like a little FanDuel thing right outside the Phoenix Suns stadium, and it's so cool to go in there and just take a few things right before you walk in the game. FanDuel's a lot of fun, man. I'm telling you. So go check it out. You will love it. That's FanDuel.com. Jimmy Stein guarantees that Charles Bediako will not be ever declared ineligible. I should put a disclaimer. Jimmy Stein does not, in fact, guarantee that. I just said at the end of that, because I don't know legally. Jimmy knows stuff more than I. All right, so you're saying that, like, breaking news as we're talking right this minute, Charles Bediako has been granted eligibility. That is a story, Jimmy.
It's a major story. And hey, I'm very happy for Charles. He wanted this. I'm very happy for Alabama, who benefits from it. I'll just go back to when Luke and I over a couple months ago talked about the Baylor case. And the first thing I said about the Baylor case, where the kid would have been drafted by the NBA and then later ruled eligible to play college basketball, I said, hey, we can talk about what distinguishes this case from others, but this is the slippery slope. Watch the unintended consequences of that ruling, and who knew Alabama would benefit in terms of the unintended consequences. I love this for Alabama. I hate it for the sport as a whole because, again, it's too late to put the toothpaste back in the tube. They let it out. Another rant I have is that I'm sure this judge is very good at judging. That's what judges do. But the NCAA and its membership is at fault in the sense that they screwed this up so much that now judges and politicians who know nothing about sports are making the rules that everyone plays by. They're not sports experts. They're legal experts. But they don't know sports. And that's who's making the rules for everyone, because the NCAA and its member schools abdicated their responsibility to the sport and their fans and just allow it all to play out in sports. Now, that said, you go forward and Bediaco is on the basketball team, and a huge addition to a team that has struggled defending the interior. And Bediaco is going to be a big help. I don't think he's going to boot Aiden Sherrell out of the starting spot, but he will be an extremely valuable high-minute player off the bench, especially defensively.
A couple other things. And also you're putting judges that are looking to possibly be reelected, or that you're putting them in charge of this. And so you're telling me a judge in Tuscaloosa, or in the case of Trinidad Chambliss in Mississippi, that a judge in Mississippi is going to go, you know what? This doesn't sound right. No to Trinidad Chambliss. You know what that judge will not be? A judge next time there's an election.
That's right. That's why these cases should be in federal court for a number of reasons. But that reason, what if, this is in state court. What if it was filed in state court in Baton Rouge or Lee County? How would it have come out? Because it turns into, it's about politics and elections. And of course, the Tuscaloosa judge ruled in favor of something that Alabama sports fans were 100% in favor of. But again,
so stupid.
But hey, I'll look at the on-court result, which is, we're locked on Bama, not locked on legal news.
Not locked on do what's right necessarily. But so, going back to Trinidad Chambliss for a second, ESPN did something today where they said, okay, these are the team, we predict the starting quarterback for all Power 5 teams or whatever. And they predicted Trinidad Chambliss. And I was like, wait a minute, he's he's still not eligible right now, right this minute, right? I mean, but everybody's just assuming, yeah, but I mean, he's going to be eligible. And so it just doesn't matter. We might as well go ahead and say he's going to be the starter. If that's the case, again, I'm like you. As an Alabama person, bring me Bediako. Bring me Brandon Miller if we can get him. I'm fine. Bring me Robert Ory. I don't care. Bring me all of them.
Right.
But and I know I'm being facetious there because Bediako actually does fall within a window. There is actually a case. I feel like it's a very shaky case, but it is a case for Bediako to be eligible based on what the NCAA has done with guys who have played professionally, especially in Europe. You know, there's a guy for Illinois that played professionally in Europe, and now he's just here playing. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not right. The NCAA should say, if you played pro anywhere, anything, you're ineligible. That would make sense to me.
Yes. And I agree with that 1,000,000%, but this is their fault for opening the door. They opened the door when they started allowing the professional Europeans to play, then the G League guys. I mean, the door was open, and this is their fault for opening that door. You know, what's going to be interesting is this is a ruling by a Tuscaloosa County judge. I believe it's a TRO, which basically means it's an injunction or a temporary order. You know, I wonder what would happen if, for instance, and again, I don't know, Charles plays and is later ruled not eligible to play.
That's what I was wondering. But now I would assume
player, that'd be a problem.
If I were Alabama and then they said, okay, well, you're ineligible, the first thing if I would do is I'm Alabama is sue the NCAA and say, now again, you're the law talking guy, not me, you're Lionel Hutz. But I would sue and say, wait a minute, a judge said he could play. Now we let him play. Then it was determined he couldn't play anymore, so we made him quit playing. We're not playing him anymore. If that scenario were to play out.
I doubt there is some sort of a downfall to Alabama playing Charles based on this judge's ruling. I don't think Alabama would pay a price for that. If he's later determined ineligible, he probably just comes off the court, assuming that would happen before the end of the season. But I don't know. It's just crazy to me that any player could. This rule can't be just about basketball. Now, football player. What's the deadline for returning to school now? There is none. There's no deadline for applying to the draft and returning to school in any sport.
This is
now, what happens in football when a player, let's say, and Ty Simpson, I left, I'm going to the NFL because I've been assured I'm going to be a first-round pick. Let's say Ty's taken in the second round. So you're like, nope, I'm going back to Alabama. I'm going back to Alabama.
Or going back anywhere.
Agent, or I'm going to take that $6.5 million that Miami and Ole Miss because I thought I would go in the first round. That's what I mean about the slippery slope. That's not good for the sport. Baseball the same way. There's baseball players that have signed professional contracts with Major League Baseball teams and have been assigned to the minor leagues that apparently when they're in the minor leagues, they can just go back and play college baseball now. I mean, why can't they? The basketball players can. So why can't the baseball players in the minor leagues return to college baseball?
Oh Jimmy, I mean, it's amazing the way that this whole thing has been screwed up. And, you know, back in the late 80s and the 90s and in the 2000s, you remember when people were talking about how, you know, at the time, the NCAA had all the power. And they were doing things like saying to us, you're staring down the barrel of a gun. And there were some Alabama fans saying, you know, why don't we just break away from this thing and you know, start suing and start doing this? And everybody said, well, no, because, you know, and everybody's like, well, why not no? And then it was because, well, nobody's really ever done it. And the first time somebody does it, the whole thing may collapse. It looks like the thing's collapsing. At the same time, all the ratings are better for everything. All the ratings are better for game day. All the ratings are better for the games themselves. There are more college football places and stories, and Locked On has exploded because of college football. I would love to tell you that Locked On has exploded because of the well-roundedness of sports. Locked On has essentially exploded because of
sports is 365 days. Football,
because of football, like but. But then basketball stories like this will help it explode. And now, I'll tell you what, Preston Murphy's little tweet from a few weeks ago, where he's always a cartoon character. By the way, how the heck does he get somebody to put that together so quickly all the time? But anyway, he's a cartoon character and he spits out his drink reading that so-and-so is eligible or whatever. And then it shows him flying to Charlotte and to DC. And you're like, what's he doing? What does all this mean? And it sort of floats into the ether until this happens. You're like, maybe that's what this had something to do with that. But Nick Kelly with AL.com, he's the one that broke the news and says Charles Bediako has been granted a temporary restraining order and is immediately eligible to participate in all Alabama activities and games per court documents obtained by AL.com. And his second tweet says, this will remain in effect for 10 days or until a hearing on the motion for a preliminary injunction is conducted. A hearing is set for January 27th. So that means it's set for next Monday, or actually next Tuesday. And by that time, Alabama will have already played Tennessee. And guess what we need when we play Tennessee? A big man.
A big guy. Yeah. I mean, his impact on the basketball team, it can be overstated in the sense that, again, I don't think they're going to bump Sherrell out of the starting lineup. By the way, Aiden Sherrell's playing outstanding basketball the last two games. But Bediako off the bench defensively would be huge, a real game changer for Alabama, and that can't be understated. But no, just because he's had a couple years experience, and we would be getting a better Bediako than the one that left, and he's older. But again, I sort of see him as a Noah Williamson replacement and upgrade, more so than I see, well, Aiden, get on the bench. 35 minutes is showing up in Bediako. I don't think that's the case.
Matthew Travis, who is it says former TV sports guy, he has a Bama podcast of some description. He tweeted this out, and it looks like this was tweeted out last night. James Nagy, I guess that's the guy who went to Baylor. Right? Yeah. So he was drafted 31st in the NBA draft. He played 132 professional games, 1,251 professional minutes played, and he's currently playing for Baylor right now. Charles Bediako went undrafted, 46 professional games played, 979 professional minutes played. He's not allowed to play, and Najee gets 4 years, and Bediako's asking for 1 semester. So again, I am fine, and Matthew Travis says this too. He's like, I think both of them should be ineligible. I'm on board with you 100%. But if you're going to say that the first guy can play right, and the second guy can't, that's where I think, yeah, you got a lawsuit. You got something.
The NCAA distinguishes it this way. The first player was drafted, but he never signed. He's never signed a contract with an NBA basketball team.
But he played professionally.
He did play professionally, but he did not sign with an NBA. He did not sign with an NBA team that drafted him. Right. Bediako did not get drafted, but he signed initially with the San Antonio Spurs and has since signed 2 more professional contracts. Right now, Bediako is under contract with the Detroit Pistons. He's under contract with the Detroit Pistons.
What does Detroit say about this?
I don't know, because he's playing for the Pistons G League team. Apparently,
if I was Detroit, I'd be like, no, you're not going back there.
I don't understand it. I mean,
because also, isn't there some kind of Canadian thing where Bediako can't make NIL money? Because he's from Canada.
I think that's been changed or wasn't 100% accurate at the time when we used to talk about that. I think. But I don't know how any of it's working, nor do I know how this is going to work. Alabama's at 13 scholarships. You're not granted a 14th one by the Tuscaloosa County judge. Now, the limits went up across the sport, I think, to 15 or 16. I'm not sure whether the SEC implemented that, because just this past year, for instance, the SEC told its member institutions, hey, we're staying at 85. We'll move to 105 next year. So I'm not sure whether basketball did the same thing or not. But, boy, it just shows how many moving parts there are to this. I wonder if Alabama is going to hold Bediako out until the hearing next week. I mean, that's a possibility too, because you don't want to play an ineligible player in a game. I think the judge's ruling gives Alabama some grace here, but I'm not
gosh,
sure. We'll have to stay tuned. Stay tuned to
I'm
the next episode of Locked On Bama.
I'm going to tell you, Jimmy. I mean, part of me is like, shoot for the moon, baby. Just go ahead and play him, start him, and let the rough end drag. The problem would be if then we get tied up in something and Alabama is not allowed to participate in the NCAA basketball tournament until this is resolved. Well, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's going to happen immediately, and then you just don't get that back. So I don't know. But part of me is like, dude, the NCAA have no leg to stand on. They're done with legs. They're completely out.
I would urge caution, as I often do. I would urge caution. Also, Alabama's a better basketball team than Tennessee, in my opinion, and you don't need Bediako to beat them. And Alabama's fine without Charles, but so that's why I would be cautious so as not to do something that could be damaging. But this is what's going to happen. Alabama's compliance team, led by, I think Matt Self is still running that department. Matt Self and Alabama's lawyers will be speaking to the NCAA's lawyers, and they're going to get some level of clarification, and there's still going to be some communication between Alabama's compliance team, the lawyers, and the NCAA and their lawyers.
All right. Well, we're gonna go to your countdown, but all of a sudden that doesn't seem as interesting. All right. Well, EJ Crowell,
not sure that it ever was, but go ahead.
EJ Crowell it was named Mr. Football, really and cool. Should have been totally deserved. He's a dude. I'll tell you, some of his recent quotes have made me think, hey, this guy's a Bama lifer and a Gump, and I love it. I'm also not naive enough to say, hey, this guy will stay at Alabama for sure, no doubt, for 3, maybe 4 years. I'm not going to say that about anybody anymore. If my own child were a football star, I would not say that child is 100% staying at Bama for 4 years if they went, because I don't know that anybody's going to stay anywhere for 4 years when they go anywhere anymore. So that being said, Jimmy, your countdown rolls on.
Yeah. I'll say this about Crowell real quick. I don't rule out by any means, and I'm sort of half expecting a Ryan Williams level freshman season from EJ Crowell. And by that means Ryan was a Mr. Football and then reclassified and joined up Alabama and was like Alabama's best playmaking wide receiver off the bus. I won't be surprised if EJ Crowell does the same thing with the running back room. 53. We're at 53. Things got a little wonky with numbers. That's because when we started the roster ranking countdown, there was like 54 players or so on the roster, and then we added to the roster since then. That's why the numbers are wonky. But 53, Steve Mbumwa. This is the point of the countdown, Luke. We're already, even at player 53, 53rd best player on the roster per the ranking here. We're already at what I think is evidence that Alabama is going to be a good team this fall, because here we are at 53, and I'm talking about a guy who I think has a lot of promise and who might be impactful as soon as this season. Stephen Mbumwa, he's been depth. He's been learning the game, played a year at junior college. Man, from a size, speed, athleticism standpoint, really good. No one should be shocked if Mbumwa makes a run this spring. I'm not predicting it. That's why he's down here at 53. But no one should be surprised if Stephen Mbumwa makes a run at the top of the depth chart, because he's got the athletic measurables to do so and has now been pretty immersed in American football. I'm sure most of y'all remember this was a guy who's from French-speaking Canada who didn't start playing football until I think he was a senior in high school, who came down and played 1 year of junior college before he was eligible to be at Alabama. And this is like a year 3 redshirt. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. I think this is going to be a year he's one to watch, and he's way down here at 53. 52, Abdul Sanders. Very similar to Mbumwa in this way. Don't rule out Abdul Sanders making a run at the first team playing rotation. He's very capable of that. As a matter of fact, when all of the freshmen inside linebackers arrived last spring, he was probably the best one of the bunch initially. I think in terms of between him and Duke Johnson, Luke Metz, and QB Reese, I think Abdul showed up and was the best player initially. Now, I think since then, QB Reese may have proven to be the best player of that bunch so far. But hey, this will change semester to semester. Don't be shocked if Abdul Sanders makes a run. So that's the point of this point of the countdown, Luke. Every player that we talk about going forward is a player that has a shot to be a significant player on the team this fall. I love the depth of the roster. The depth of the roster is very good. I think where this team may end up falling short is maybe a lack of star power, player 1 through 22. Maybe that's not as good as we're used to, but the depth of talent is very good.
The other thing about Abdul Sanders, when you talk about QB Reese, who I love QB Reese. QB Reese, 6 feet, 224 plus or minus. He may be a little bigger than that now in terms of weight, but Abdul Sanders listed at 6'2", more like 235. And again, he may be a little bigger too. And don't let anybody tell you 2 inches don't matter. That this portion is sponsored by Rugiet. But he's a little bigger. But I love QB Reese because of his Bamarisms. I love him because he's from the state. But Abdul Sanders is also a dude who played for arguably the best high school program in the country. And he knows a thing or two about football too. I just hope they both get to play. I hope they're both superstars. I think when you redo your countdown at the end of next year, or maybe even the beginning of the year, I think
we'll have another one after the spring.
Yeah, I think Abdul Sanders will be much further up the list. That's my prediction. I think QB Reese, wherever you have him, I think he may still be about right there. And I think Abdul Sanders may move up. That is no shot at QB Reese, who if I was having another child, which would make number 17, I would name him QB because I love QB Reese. I just think that there are some size limitations potentially. And I also am very high on Abdul Sanders. Again, that is no knock on either one of them. I want
QB
everybody
much higher because I see QB as a real threat to win a starting position at inside linebacker. I don't right now. My money is on Caleb Woodson and Caden Jones.
Yeah,
the starters. That's my money. My money's those two. QB Reese would be next guy up in my opinion, and that's why you'll see him much later in the rankings.
Caden Jones' parents listen to the podcast. We appreciate them very much. I met them at the Oklahoma game. Couldn't have been a nicer group of people. So that being said, yes, we think he'll be a starter. And, hang tight because Caden Jones will be way up the rankings. So, all right, that's going to do it. And look, if something happens with the Bediaco thing, we might have to go live. I mean, I'm stoked about this.
Basically went live right now with our breaking news. It's been pretty rare that we did breaking news while we're recording.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Because stop the recording to go live. Consider that.
Because what was that on Spaceballs where he was like, "Well, we need to do it right now." When? Right now? Well, we just missed it because that was right now. Then anyway, I forget the whole thing. I got to see Spaceballs again. All right, that's going to do it for this podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.